At the beginning of the week, One Nation sensationally withdrew its support for the federal government's company tax plan, which would see all businesses, regardless of their size, gradually pay a tax rate of 25% in about 500 years from now. Tongue in cheek there. On Thursday, the One Nation leader Pauline Hanson signalled that she may be willing to compromise. But the whole issue with Pauline Hanson and One Nation is not just about this company tax. The Australian I think it was Tuesday this week, on the front page, actually had a photo of Pauline plus a whole list of her comments and gripes about the government and the pension, and I just went kind of, yes, 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 yes. And I liked a hell of a lot of it, I got to say.
Yeah, nice photo too of Pauline.
And she's on the line for a chat. Morning, Pauline.
Good morning. Hello, guys.
Hello, Pauline.
Happy birthday.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're not allowed to have any more chockies as of today. Ever. Again. Ever.
Oh, another day. God, they come around so quickly, don't they?
Don't they?
We did a quick around the studio. How old do you reckon we're not giving your age away.
Not allowed
we
to.
We did a quick around the office, and we reckon you looked pretty darn good for your age, put it that way.
That is so sweet, dude. Thank you very
You're
much.
a good-looking old Sheila.
Oh, I wouldn't go there. So one of the things I liked about what you said about the tax, and we were saying this, I think, from day one here as well, this business with the company tax cuts is that it's in the never. It's going to take about 9 years to come through. In the United States with Donald Trump, they just went bang. We are so out of whack with the rest of the world. We're just pricing ourselves out of the market.
You were so right. You know, first off, when they mentioned I was anti this tax cut, and my gut was telling me, and I said, look, you know, Donald Trump's brought it in now, 21% plus your state taxes brings around about 26% on average, and this is supposed to be 26, 27 before the tax cuts come in. Now, I spoke to Matisse Coleman about this, and he said, well, you've got to give them incentives, you know, look further down the track. And I said, look, people need the break now, not further down the track. Anyway, on reflection of it, and the budget was handed down, and I thought, we haven't got the money. I'm really concerned about the future.
Yeah.
And the money that we owe of $550 billion, some people say $600 billion, we're talking about billions. And they're talking about a surplus. Now, the surplus they're talking about of $2 to $2.5 billion, that's only just putting, you know, so they're catching up with their spending. That's not even paying anything off the debt. And I thought, we can't keep doing this. And that's when I changed my opinion. When the deal that I did with the government over the company, the corporate tax cuts, what I was asking for was employment apprenticeship schemes, because we've lost 250,000 apprentices in this country. We're bringing in skilled migrants and 457 visa holders. We're not looking after our own. I've been talking and screaming from the rooftops about opening up the gas fields off the Northwest Shelf, get the multinationals to pay for our resources, and it falls on deaf ears. And Labor got rid of the royalties in 2009, and the current government is reluctant to do anything about it. Now, under my proposal, it would have brought in $6 billion over the next 10 years, and it could have increased even more. That's only just a starting point. And it's like you're hitting your head against a brick wall, and I thought, no, I can't do this to the people, and I've withdrawn my support. I'm not going back on it. That was just something that was put to me on Thursday.
All right, Pauline, can I just ask you that they are saying, and I mentioned it in the introduction before we put you on, that you had indicated or signalled or something that you may be willing to compromise, and that's coming from the media. What are you saying?
No. When Bill Curry, he came up to me and he said, Darren Hinch is talking about 500 million as a turnover point. Would you consider that? And I said, look, if it's put there, I said, in all honesty, respect, I have to talk to my colleagues. I'm not going to make policy on the run. And I have to talk to my colleagues. My colleagues feel exactly the same as I do. But, you know, my colleagues wouldn't be happy if come out and I said, no, we're not supporting that. You have a look at it, but I know that we won't. But, and I have to respect my colleagues for them to have an opinion. Before I made this decision and going to the papers, I rang them both up on Monday and I spoke to them both and they agreed with me, and that's why I went to the papers.
Right.
But they are my colleagues.
Right. So it's no, you're not going to support.
No, we're not going to. Look, the public opinion is about 80% of Australians don't want these corporate tax cuts. And I'm listening to the people. I think the government has to start reining in their spending. And if they were thinking about the corporate tax cuts to give incentives, then start it from now.
But also, Pauline, those corporate tax cuts are as weak as water. And they're not. If you're going to cut them, you should be cutting them today and cutting them a lot more than that, and then attacking the nation's debt. Survey after survey keeps saying that Australians want the government to do something about the debt, and this latest budget they brought through, they can't manage the annual budget. It's still in deficit, and it's well over $500 billion with national debt. I mean, we'll all be dead and gone before they even start attacking it.
Exactly right. And we have an opportunity there to go after the multinationals. As I said, in your revenue of your taxes, the personal tax is 75% of that revenue. Corporate tax is 25%. Right? Now, of that 25%, 98% of it comes from Australian companies, only 2% from multinationals. If you've got an Australian company, you've got a multinational, the Australian company is behind the eight ball to start with because they're paying their taxes. The multinationals aren't because they write off everything and then I'll give you an example. When you got Google, Microsoft and Apple, they had an 8 billion sales and only paid $148 million in taxes. Google has a $3 billion sales. They wrote off $2 billion of that in, I'm just trying to think of what it is.
It's not depreciation.
No, in intellectual property.
Okay.
So that went back to America. Now, we're not getting any of that, so they only paid tax on $1 billion.
Yep.
So they're writing down everything.
It is clear.
To change.
It is clear that something needs to be done about offshoring and the way things are manipulated, particularly by some of these larger companies. I think some Australian companies are doing it too, from what you hear.
Pauline, there was a time when you were going to agree with all of these, and you turned around virtually sort of at the last minute.
The budget.
Beg your pardon?
We were going to pass this in March.
Yep.
Anyway, they needed one more vote.
Yep.
And then the budget was brought down, and I thought, this is not good enough. We cannot afford this.
Okay, you're not frightened of being that you will be accused of making policy on the run?
No, I'm not. I think after 2 months of actually thinking about it,
yes,
and actually investigation and having a look at what's happening on the northwest shelf, no, someone's got to rein this government in, and they've got to cut back on their spending.
All right,
that's what I've been questioning a lot.
Right, now the other one I want to talk to you about is you're one of the people coming out and saying that the government should build a coal-fired power station. The thing that's annoying the hell out of me, you're hearing all these renewable people saying how renewables are now cheaper than coal, blah, 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 but what they're not saying... of course it's not true. What they're not saying is that they're getting billions and billions of dollars in subsidies from taxpayers. If they took all the subsidies away today and let the best one stand up, it wouldn't be wind and it wouldn't be solar.
It doesn't, because it costs us so much money to produce this in the billions of dollars. We've got 1,600 power stations being built around the world. China's putting in 700. They've realised that these renewables have not worked in their countries. Now they're going back to coal-fired power stations. We are bloody fools in this country.
Yeah,
and we're allowing Liddell, and the government should step in and say, we are taking over Liddell. We have an obligation for security in this country, and security means providing energy at cheap prices for the people here.
All right.
We're
okay.
Fools.
All right, now, enough of that. Go and have a happy birthday.
Yeah, have a drink.
Thanks, guys.
We'll have a drink for you this afternoon sometime, Pauline, and a happy birthday.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you coming on the show.
Bye-bye, Pauline.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Pauline Hanson. And it's hard to argue with what she's saying.
It is very, very difficult. It is.